Who's it? It's VJ. Headspace album review. Let's do it again. I am really thrilled to talk about this album. It's coming from a personal place, as a binary. This is a tape from two of the most respected artists in the hip-hop fraternity of Port Elizabeth. So this is kind of one of those biased episodes. This is Boxface / Hakeem / Tolo Liga Keswa, a notable underground lyricist from PE, as said. No, not from PE, but active in the PE rap space. Man's originally was a Tikeni Netakis Timbaza. Sorry, Hakeem. Anyways, was a Timbaza. Teaming up with one of the most renowned producers of our province. I say our because again I'm talking about PE. I'm sorry, there's gonna be a lot of PE based content, y'all. You'll have to bear with us and I'll tell you why. These two cats come together and they are the Soul WondaFool. Like actually Soul WondaFool, like you, I pity the fool. And in typical backpacker, cypher, grimy, street, purist, golden era aesthetic, they bring us what is kind of like a time portal eclipsed version of that sound mashed into today's digital mess. They call it Ambrosia For Nerds. And I thought to myself, what the fuck does that mean? You know, and I know the idea of ambrosia, you know, the food of the gods, which bestows immortality on those who, you know, eat the thing. And obviously the nerd would be the socially awkward person who later evolves into a success. So I put two and two together and thought to myself, Ambrosia For Nerds. This must mean, and I'll tell you why I think this is the meaning, that through this project, what is kind of directly or indirectly being conveyed is the secret elixir to how socially awkward MCs, socially awkward hip-hop artists who feel like they might be lost in the vacuum of time, artists who don't feel like they blend in with today's mix, how they can find longevity, how they can go beyond the trend, and how they can last. So I really think after listening to it, this motherfucker might actually have some ambrosia for nerds, and or maybe ambrosia for purists, and maybe that's what he should have called it, because this project really delivers a lot of that hardcore boom bap sound, of course filtered in an open, sparse, minimalist feel. Having like really been a fan of Subs' production for a long time, it really feels like this is a producer who's kind of regurgitating the boom bap instinct to a trap audience. At least there's an ambition to do this, because the beats feel like they would literally play alongside, you know, something you'd hear from a Kendrick, or they kind of echo something along the lines of that early pro era movement when Joey Badass and them were really coming hard with what felt like a boom bap renaissance. And on the kind of issue of renaissance, this album doesn't really try to usher in a rebirth, but a reflection on the most important parts of boom bap, the most important parts of that sound. And I think the most important parts of that sound were, number one, it gave artists room to tell stories, like really deep, detailed, vivid stories. And Hakeem does this incredibly well. He kind of pulsates through spiritual themes and mystical undertones, delivering what in a nutshell can be called the kind of mystic path of the lonely traveler who comes from the way Timbaza, enters into this kind of urban maze finds himself as an artist and emerges with the best parts of himself. And all these songs echo that. What I also like is that over the years, he's done something very important, and that I feel he teaches as a lesson here. It's part of that recipe which builds that ambrosia. And listen closely, heads. Hip-hop is an artistry of voice. Hip-hop is an artistry of place and time. Now, we as rappers, I say we, maybe I'm not a rapper anymore. I'm just some cat who talks shit on YouTube. But rappers use their voice to translate the innermost parts of themselves. Now here's the interesting thing. Hip-hop, having come from the United States, quite often filters into a lot of us African rappers. I said us again. This inspiration of sounding American. This inspiration of almost talking in an American fantasy. And I feel like this American fantasy traps a lot of MCs in a box where they don't relate to their most immediate listeners. And Boxface Hakeem breaks away from that because he doesn't even vaguely sound American. Like, yeah, you can kind of catch the fact that this is a cat that listens to boom bap hip hop, but he takes all of the parts of himself. His English is said in the most fucking Xhosa Dimbaza accent, delivering the most sophisticated concepts and themes you could ever imagine. And I love that. This is what we love from cats like Emphatic Tabs. Breaking the tongue in South Africa is a revolutionary act. We even find certain political parties using a certain kind of accent to appeal to the lowly masses. Now there's something there to be said about that. The politics of accentuation, or the politics of accent, is really deep, and MCs need to understand what this whole shit is about. The way you sound says a lot about who you are. And if we're always gonna sound like we come from the streets of Brooklyn, when we know sisuke Mbaza, sisuke Dubani, or sisuke Soweto, it breaks the communication between you and your audience. This is really, to be honest, why people in the beginning didn't fucks with rap, because it just sounded like a bunch of motherfuckers who were trying to be anything but South African. Now, fast forward to 2022, and we have an album of a South African rapper and a South African MC truly embracing their inspiration, American and South African, and alchemizing it, you know, and taking it that comes from a place where you can definitely hear that this is from my country, this is from this place, this locates me. I mean, there are parts where Hakeem sings, it calls almost like uyombela or whatever the fuck he's trying to do there, but it just sounds so natural. It just sounds so placed and so delicately fitting to what this project aspires to be, an ambrosia for the nerds. So ultimately, I'm gonna give this motherfucking project an 8 out of 10. And the only reason I'm not giving it that 2 is that there are times where I feel like the beats on this were a little bit monotonous, and it was one world, but it's one big world because of Hakeem's ability to illustrate so many images. It becomes a wide multiverse of thoughts. However, the production, as skilled as it might be, does swing around the same kinds of molds, and for that it didn't quite take me as further as I think it could have gone. So for that alone, Ishang 8. Otherwise, I feel like this stands as a strong testament of what I'm always ceasingly preaching about. Authenticity does not mean rapping in so-called vernac. Authenticity means tap into where you come from. A lot of MCs don't even rap like the way they talk. I see you in cyphers where you like, yo Brian, I love rap, and then the next thing you climb on the mic, hey yo, I'm coming through. Brothers, sisters, it's about time we understand how to be true to our voices, how to be true to our history, how to be true to our neighborhoods, how to be true to our experiences. Because if you look at the most successful MCs, and my measure of success here is obviously mass appeal. Because who are we talking to if not for the masses? So for all those socially awkward nerds, this is a manual from your bigger brother Hakeem and from your bigger brother Subs coming together as the Soul WondaFools. And maybe they're fools because they wander around in their souls, or maybe they're fools because they're, you know, they're wonderful to the soul or whatever. But what this kind of project strikes me as is a moment of realization. For a lot of cats who've been rapping for a long time, who've understood what they've missed, and who've understood how to find themselves in their particular niche in rap and in hip-hop. Because hip-hop is so fucking broad and big. So that's what it is. 8 out of 10. Ambrosia For Nerds was delectable. I love it. I hope to hear a lot of projects which echo this sentiment. The sentiment of the big A. Authenticity. Talk to me. It's VJ.
The sweat lifting the tab, chills the buzz, run out of the booze like slipping fans, I go overheads. Poets and preachers alike with encrypted messages in the verses that heat the mic. Yo, freaking emphasis, yo, my sentences heat the light. So when you catch it, you pull in the cat and you kill the night and leave you in the days that's colder than winter days. Turn your brain to a folder as soon as I pick the page. Control, I delete and eject after the banner. The music has a different effect when it gets turned up in news. So yeah, for now, yo. Yes, sir.